Welcome to Banking on Air, the Vacuum Labs podcast about banking, fintech, and how it's growing around the world. My name is Marcel Klimo, and today I'm super happy to have Deniz Güven, the CEO of Mox by Standard Chartered, over in Hong Kong. Deniz, after releasing in September of 2020, you have achieved amazing success with the app. You have managed to reach 100,000 customers within just 8 months, and also released Mox credit service for your existing customers in April 2021. That's super great, and we as Vacuum Labs are very proud that we've been on this journey with you from the very beginning. So thank you for accepting the invitation today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. This is a great pleasure to be here, with you today, and I hope we will have a great chat.
Great. I believe it's now been 2 years since we first met?
Exactly. Maybe a bit more than 2 years.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe a bit more than 2 years. I mean, I still remember back then, 2 years ago, coming into an empty WeWork with just a bunch of chairs, a lot of empty rooms, and we're just sitting in this meeting trying to see how this Mox can come into existence. That was a really exciting time. Now all those rooms are filled. Take me back to the very beginning. How did you get started with Mox and the entire big vision?
Sure, Marcel. It's a long story, but I will try to make it short. As you remember, maybe a bit more than 2 years ago, we started this journey with a lot of different discussions. Maybe before that, we workplace, etc. There were a lot of discussions internally. Everything started in Hong Kong with HKMA, our regulator. Because when I look at other markets, for example, for UK, all these neobanks, digital banks, conversations, they started a bit differently, maybe organically, but in Hong Kong, HKMA. And thanks to them, to be honest, they started these conversations in 2017, October. In October time, they said we'll issue virtual banking licenses in Hong Kong. Once we heard this, of course, it was a great moment for us to understand, okay, what will happen in this market and how are we going to manage this kind of a new dynamic? Because at the end of the day, as Standard Chartered, we are a huge bank, actually, especially in emerging markets. We are operating approximately 70 different markets and 28 retail markets, but almost all of them are emerging markets. And Hong Kong is one of the most important markets for Standard Chartered because we have a huge history here. First of all, we are the first not issuer bank in Hong Kong. I'm talking about 160 years ago. We are still issuing banknotes in Hong Kong, and you can see our name, Standard Chartered. It's a great feeling. But on the other hand, we got a lot of customers. It's a very profitable business in Hong Kong, and it's a great franchise. And of course, the conversation was at that time, okay, there will be virtual banks in Hong Kong, but do we need to get one of these licenses? Do we need it? Or how are we going to operate it? At that time, we asked 2 questions. First of all, can we defend our market? Can we defend ourselves with our existing operating model? Now, our existing operating model is great. However, it's a bit more like a traditional model. And that traditional model, of course, branch-based, physical places with some supplement of digital channels. This doesn't mean that we don't have, some strong digital channels, but at the end of the day, they are channels, not propositions or not operating models. And the second question was, can we attack this market or can we attack any market with our existing model? I think these 2 questions, they opened a lot of doors for us because the answers were no. And that no, I think it was our starting point. And after that, of course, we had a lot of discussions with the top team, and we try to explain what should we design, what should we build, what should we create in Hong Kong. Because the discussion, just after these 2 questions was, okay, let's do a virtual bank. But what is the definition of virtual bank? Because everybody's talking about virtual banks, digital banks, neobanks, challenger banks. Who are they? What are they doing? And especially, when I look at, all these, big banks and the big banks, traditional banks, global banks, they bring some challenger bank ideas. But have you ever seen a successful one? Because I've been in banking more than 20 years, and it's really difficult to be successful if you are really coming from a big bank. And you shouldn't think only, okay, let's build a sexy app and crack the market. Unfortunately, there is no market like this that you can crack anymore. It was 10, 15 years ago, because at that time, it was easier to go somewhere with a sexy web page with some pricing and good branding. Now it was easy. But now you can go many markets and you can say that my app is super cool. But the customers will ask you, what is in it for me? And how are you going to differentiate in that market with your services instead of products, which we are going to talk about it. Yeah, of course, we explained the situation. And what I told to everyone, instead of building a virtual bank, because the official name is Virtual Bank Perfect, especially in Hong Kong. Let's build the future operating model of Standard Chartered. I think that this is the most critical piece, and it was vital for me instead of just focusing on one mobile app and pushing the technology and pricing. We decided to focus on new operating model, which can bring us a lot of different opportunities and also a lot of chances that we can differentiate ourselves in Hong Kong in this model.
Wonderful. For some people, that might sound very easy, but tell me about the first days. What were your first days like when you arrived in Hong Kong?
Of course, the story, it sounds like super easy. But as you said, I started with a couple of people in Hong Kong because I used to live in Singapore for Standard Chartered. And I moved here to Hong Kong and I brought a couple of guys from Singapore, from my existing teams. I took a couple of guys from this market and we started. When I first moved here, people, they asked me, Deniz, do you know Hong Kong? Because Hong Kong is different. All these things you can see in different markets. If you ask my opinion, there are a lot of similarities between many markets. But of course, there are some also uniqueness of the markets that you need to understand. If you can understand that uniqueness, then you can differentiate.
Okay, I get that. But there's lots of similarities between many different markets, and there are unique things in specific markets. So did you do any specific research to figure out how this particular market was different and how it differentiated?
At that point, we decided to do ethnographic research. That ethnographic research helped us to understand the daily life of the customers. It was a good understanding for us because we identify more than 80 different pain points in retail banking in Hong Kong. We decided to focus on these pain points, and on top of all these pain points, we started to build services, not products. Now, this is critical, not products, services. And under the services, we focus on micro innovations on the product level, and we try to solve the pain points. Being a new bank in Hong Kong or in any market, it's not that easy. Why? Because first of all, you need to get the right approvals from regulators. And of course, here, what we did, we wrote in a huge banking license. It was like an encyclopedia for me. It was like my second MBA. Believe me, we did that in 3 months' time. And with a very limited and small team, in 3 months' time, we submitted that. And of course, submission is not enough. You need to manage your relationship with the regulator, and you need to maintain a really good relationship to understand the needs of regulators. Plus, you need to also understand what should you do on the customer side. Meanwhile, of course, there were 31 applicants in Hong Kong for the virtual banking licenses at that time. 31 applicants from many other places, Europe, US, mainland China, Hong Kong, big groups, big families, etc. We obtained the license in 19 March, and it was a tough journey with a lot of questions, interviews, and everything with our regulator. We obtained the license. What happened, between the license application and the obtaining the license? There are many different parties or different companies, they reach us out to understand, do we want to do some JV partnerships?
Okay, I get it. So do you believe you could be successful just on your own and based on this operating model, or do you need the partners?
Of course, what I believe, and this is also a very important part of our operating model, I don't believe that you can be successful on your own. It's really difficult, especially if you are building something from scratch. You need to find a partner or partners that you can collaborate with them in a different way. I'm not talking about a marketing partner or database sharing or this kind of things. I'm not talking about these things. Or, to be honest, in our case, we didn't look at a partner just because of the capital injection or investment. We didn't look at any VC money. We look at some partners who can bring us two important things. First of all, a distribution channel. They can be digital or physical. And the partners who can build services with us together to touch the daily life of the customers. And I'm saying this again, because as a bank or all the banks, honestly, it's really difficult to believe that we can touch the daily life of the customers easily. At the end of the day, you are becoming like a utility and you are losing that power, and many different apps in your phone, they are becoming a major players. But how can you become a daily player in their lives? So it's a critical thing. So that's why we pick our partners.
Okay, so what partners did you choose? Which ones did you get?
Today, of course, everything is public. We got Hong Kong Telecom and PCCW Group. Hong Kong Telecom is the biggest telco company in Hong Kong, and PCCW Group in general as a group, they got more than 4 million customers in Hong Kong out of 7.4 million population. And the second one is, of course, Trip.com. They are the second biggest digital travel operator globally. Unfortunately, in these days, it's really difficult to talk about travel. However, travel will come back. We are praying for these vaccines and everything. What I believe is we picked our partners. We got our capital injection as well. We became a really well-funded company. I was trying to hire critical people to the organization. It was tough. Marcel, you were with us because especially if you want to deliver and build something quickly, I think we built this bank approximately 530 days. I'm not talking about the story that I gave before, because in the beginning we were not in a build mode. Starting from build mode to deliver to market, I think 532 days or something. Delivering a bank. Okay, I'm not talking about a vertical fintech, a licensed bank with a lot of governance, risk, AML, FCC, all this treasury, liquidity, finance systems with a new technology, which we didn't use any existing technologies from our mothership.
How did you do it, Deniz?
It was tough. And of course, I picked two different ways as a combined way. One is, of course, hiring people and hiring really talents from Hong Kong or outside of Hong Kong. I did more than 1,200 interviews, Marcel, for different levels: CRO, CFO, CIO, or head of compliance, or sometimes developers, sometimes marketers, sometimes digital product owners. I did, to understand what do we have in this market or globally, and brought the right people and right talents to Hong Kong. The second way, of course, finding good partners like you guys, Vacuum Labs, and accelerate the delivery. Thanks to you, I think we found a lot of talented engineers, sometimes remotely, sometimes we were lucky at that time. I miss all those times so that you guys could come to here and we worked together in the same office. It was really, really good experience for all of us. Thanks to you guys, we accelerated the delivery. I think in 530 days, we delivered the bank. We started with sandboxes, and then we delivered some alpha, beta. You can imagine we tried to fix the problems before we go live. And finally, 22nd of September, we launched the bank. And so far, I think the results are really encouraging. I'm seeing really positive and encouraging results in Hong Kong. Mox right now, I think it's a very popular brand. People, they really like it.
This is great. I can really tell that you've done a lot of interviews about Mox at this point, because you're just basically going through all my questions. And anytime you say something, I'm like, oh, I need to ask him about this. You come up with the answer immediately. Perfect.
I'm really pro, that I can give you the answers. Don't ask me difficult questions. Otherwise, I can answer everything.
All right, then. Let me ask you a simple question. And it goes back to what you were saying about the specifics of the Hong Kong market in particular. You came in from Singapore. You might have some experience with mainland China, possibly. But tell me, what would you say makes Hong Kong very different compared to those other markets around it?
I think Hong Kong is a real hub in Asia. I think all of us know that China is becoming, a big power in terms of financial institutions, fintechs, startups. I think there are a lot of, good players in China. We can easily tell them, they are more valuable than the European players or, US players. And Hong Kong is just next to China. We are talking about this kind of a proximity, and this proximity, gives a lot of power to Hong Kong as well. The first thing is, trading in Hong Kong, it's a superpower. And I think it's a very important part of the Hong Kong economy. And as being a hub in Asia between China and other countries, it brings us a lot of opportunities. If we focus on banking industry, Hong Kong is still one of the most profitable banking market in the world. There are some reasons behind it. There are a lot of strong global and local banks in Hong Kong. These banks are mainly focusing on high net worth customers, private customers. But I don't believe that there's enough financial inclusion here. So when I say financial inclusion, I'm talking about giving the opportunity to everyone that they can consume as like a private banking customer from their services. Unfortunately, if you are not in that level in Hong Kong, getting the banking services from the banks, I don't believe that there's the right service level for the customers. So which we call it real financial inclusion. And we want to focus on this financial inclusion to give everyone in Hong Kong. It's not dependent on how much you have or which demographic group that you are coming from. These are not important for us. We are not focusing on traditional segmentation models. We are focusing on directing the clusters, and these clusters are based on behaviors. So these behavioral motivations, behavioral clusters are much more important than the other thing. The first one is financial inclusion. Second one, of course, in Hong Kong, even today, not only in finance industry, in many industries, it's a bit difficult to see end-to-end services. Now, banks, they provide channels and they do digitalization instead of digitization. So what they do, they get and they take their physical products, they put onto channels, digital channels, and they believe that this is the transformation. What I believe, you have to do real digitization, and you have to design everything end to end that the customers can consume in a different way. Because today the model, our model, it's a bit different. And that's why we saw a lot of opportunities in Hong Kong that we can differentiate, and it makes a lot of sense to us. The last thing for us, especially for Standard Chartered, it's a great market to build the future operating model, because we need that there will be some new players, and especially traditional players in this market, and they will come here and try to disrupt. Today they are here. I'm competing with mainly 6 different strong mainland players, China mainland players. There's one local player here. Other than that, everybody's coming from really huge, big technology companies, and they already launched the banks. That was also an important opportunity for us to defend our one of the most strongest markets from the non-traditional.
Okay. So when you're saying you're building the new operating model or focusing on services rather than a product, how is it different from the other players on the market? How is that a differentiation strategy for you?
It's a very good question. It's like combination of many. There is no one formula that I can share with you, Marcel. This was the formula, we are differentiating it. No, it doesn't work like under the operating model, I define 10 different categories there that I try to put all together and combine them as one operating model. The first one is we started with new technology. Instead of looking at a very traditional core banking system and our technology quite well, we didn't pick a core banking system. I don't believe that we have a core banking. We have a service ledger, and that service ledger, it's something quite different that we can create a very building the bank. And everything around that service ledger defines with new technology. Sometimes it's a very important piece of this, but on the other hand, it's not everything. If you focus on only technology, you made a lot of mistakes. But we focus on technology just to enable some other things. This was the first one. And the second one, and I will explain how I'm using technology to differentiate instead of using technology just for technology. KYC, redefining all the onboarding models. Because if you're a digital bank, you need to onboard the customers quite differently.
So what makes it different? Is it just really about introducing digital onboarding?
And I'm not only talking about, Deniz, you have a digital onboarding. Yes, we have a digital onboarding. 2 years ago, I told my people here that, guys, can we onboard the customers in 3 minutes, 47 seconds. So that was the KPI. Marcel, this number, it has been there since day one. And I told them, can we do this? Instead of, I'm going to give you guys some targets. Can you onboard 10,000 in the first 2 days? Or can you onboard this? Can you onboard to the customers in 3 minutes, 47 seconds? What happened? One of our customers, he onboarded himself in 2 minutes, 47 seconds. Okay. So he was not one of us. We don't know that customer. He's not coming from a banking background or something, because I tried, I couldn't onboard myself, in 3 minutes. And we solve this kind of things. And this is why we are using a new technology, because technology enables us, to do this kind of things and changing the mindset, changing the KPIs quite differently. And other than that, AML, FCC, fraud systems, you need to change it. You need to understand that, how you are going to resonate, how should these things, resonate to the customers, and how can we protect our customers from any kind of incidents with the new models.
Okay, so the elephant in the room is cloud banking, right? Did you use cloud banking here?
Cloud was part of our operating model. We are one of the first cloud native bank in Asia. And I don't believe that there's entirely full-fledged cloud-based banking in Asia. I think there are some different sizes, but we are fully cloud native. Again, Marcel, I've been in banking more than 20 years. I know the service quite well. So being on cloud, it's magical.
What do you mean by magical? Why is it magical?
Why? Because you can create a lot of flexibility. And also in the future, this new operating model will create a lot of cost efficiency. In the early phases, it's still, investment. In the long run, it's going to be an interesting case for us to run a bank, entirely on cloud. Of course, marketing stack, we redefine it, the marketing tech stack under this operating model. For me, if it is not performance-based, it's branding. If it is performance-based, can be physical or digital. If it is performance-based, we call it marketing. So that's the critical, differentiation. And of course, we are using some of the players, global players, and I believe that we created a strong marketing tech stack. There are many things to do, and we will continue like this. But so far, I think our digital marketing, our performance marketing, it performs quite well.
What does it mean to be services-led? How is it different from any other company that provides services? Can you please define this?
So service-led means you can do a lot of differentiations on the product side. What we try to do, for example, if you will take a taxi from here, and if you are using a MOX card, this beautiful blue card, okay? So you can sync with your taxi app, and you can go to the Hong Kong airport. And normally it costs you like 350 from here to there. But what if MOX Bank will inform you with a gentle nudge and saying that, Marcel, in the last 3 times, it was 350, 360. This time, it did cost you 230, and there was no traffic today in Hong Kong. Do you want to check your taxi provider? So this is something we are trying to build and create here, which means a service-led bank instead of being a product. But on the other hand, of course, we are doing product innovation. I can show it easily. Why? Because there's no card number on it, there's no CVC, or there's no expiry date. I think that's the beauty of the card. So what we did, we realized that there's an extra sensitivity in Hong Kong market, especially about the card security.
Well, yes, of course. People are very security-minded these days. So what did you do differently?
We built this card with MasterCard, and there's no card number, CVC. If you are going to lose this card, nobody can use it on e-commerce transactions, etc. And it was the first numberless card in Asia by a bank. I think it was also good for us.
All right. Tell me more. Sounds interesting. Any other similar things under this operating model?
One is hiring culture. We always believe that hiring culture is a very critical one, and we hire people with Midas touch. Let me explain what is Midas. So Midas is an ancient god in Greek, okay? And this guy, I think he had some superpowers or curse. When he touches something, it becomes gold. But this is our hiring culture. And really, we want to bring people who can create extra value on top of it, who are okay, who are desiring to change. Of course, education, etc., everything is super important. Experience is super important. But can we hire people who are willing to change and also who are coming to us? I think this is super critical, and we are pushing it. Ecosystem, I mentioned about it. I think we got super good JV partners. And of course, the last piece that I want to share, under this new operating model, how we define. Instead of focusing on market share, we are focusing on hard share. And if you are new in a market, you need to get the highest hard share. If you can get the highest hard share, you will get the market share. So this is our mentality. This is our operating model.
Great. So what I'm hearing from you is that there's a major focus on the brand, right? So similar to an Apple fan will identify as an Apple fan and live that brand in their life. That's not really the case for banks, is it? Like, why do you have a bank account at a particular bank? You probably set it up after you got out of high school or out of college, and most people probably haven't paid attention to it. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing correctly? That there's a massive focus on the brand and really identifying with what the brand stands for?
We have that kind of an inspiration. It's really difficult to compare Mox Bank, with Apple. Maybe not yet, but in the future, why not? It's too early because it's a very young brand. We got, our inspiration is like each experience should be game changer.
So what does a game changer look like?
So I'm sure you saw it. More than 1,000 people in Hong Kong. I'm not talking about paid media influencers. Okay, forget that. That's another thing. More than 1,000 people from our customers, they shared their unpacking experience on social medias.
Yes.
Did I ask them to share? No. And this is priceless. Why? Because we didn't ask. And they are sharing it. Why? Because they really like the experience and they are so proud of being part of that experience. If you can create this kind of services, then you have a chance to differentiate and to be honest, you can be successful. And unpacking is only one thing, right? People they love our cards. We got also the metal card, this black metal card. I know that there was a huge queue for the metal card in Hong Kong. That's why I'm so proud of being part of this team. And I believe that we are on the right track. To be honest, we believe that this is a micro level product innovation. But if you can connect this micro level product innovation with your service level solutions, then I believe that you can be super successful.
What would you say were the biggest challenges for you to overcome over the past 3 years? What were things that you now look back on and say, oh, I'm really proud that we're able to do this?
Marcel, I think I should say one thing. We delivered this bank from home, literally. So imagine especially in Hong Kong, between February to August, September, we were at home. We didn't come to office that much, maybe 2-3 weeks we came. We were at home and we delivered from home. I think it was a big challenge. Was that different for different companies? Of course not. Especially in the beginning, you remember, right? People, they didn't know that, how to communicate with this kind of video platforms. Today, everybody is expert. However, delivering a bank is a different thing because it needs a different coordination. It needs a different kind of communication between the teams, not only delivery side. So that's why that was a huge challenge for us. The second challenge, finding the right talents and bringing the right talents to Hong Kong, especially after COVID. Of course, it's tough to ask people and travel here and hiring people from different markets to here. I think it's still a big challenge, for me, because I believe that there are some areas that we have to bring some experts, from outside. And of course, building a talent pool, it has been a challenge for the last 2 years. Other than that, of course, you are dealing with a lot of different banks and governance is important. Risk types are super important. I really take all these things extremely seriously. It's not a fintech company. So it was difficult for us to understand, adapt, change, and reuse it. That was a big challenge for us. But what I believe that we didn't do anything like, okay, let's take it from a big bank and reuse it. We didn't do that. That's why we gave extra effort to understand and rewrite and reuse in a different way.
What are the recent numbers? What can you share with us?
We reached 60,000 customers base after 80 days. I know it sounds, especially for some European markets or US markets, then it's only 60,000. Let me explain. MOX will reach almost 1% of Hong Kong population. So 1% of Hong Kong, the country population, will use your bank. So we can discuss this for different markets. Is it really easy to do that, etc., etc. So that's why I think the customer adoption, they really like it. They onboard themselves very quick and they start to use it. Other than that, we got actually the deposit balance. It's interesting. Why? Because the average deposit balance right now is around 79,000 Hong Kong dollar, which means almost 10,000 USD. So look, all these challenger banks from different markets. After many years, do you see this kind of average deposit balance? No. So this is the difference of Hong Kong. We bring a lot of customers and good customers. They were craving for good service, so they are coming to us. And honestly, our pricing model is not predatory. We are not giving the best, or even we are not the first 5-6 best interest rate bank list. This is the reality. Competitive, but we are not predatory. We are not giving any predatory pricing to our customers. Even with that, once the customers they start to use us, I think they love it. So that's why the customer numbers are quite good. Deposit balance impressive, I should say. If I know the other markets, it's not comparable. Card usage, it's becoming much better every day. It's still a debit card, but I'm using the credit cards already on Sandbox. My card is a credit card right now, and hopefully sometimes in 2021 we will provide a credit card to our customers in Hong Kong instead of only a debit card. So it's coming, it's on its way. What I see, these are some really good results. But there's one interesting thing related with this hard share. Because when I say hard share, people sometimes they think, okay, these are something high level marketing communications. So after 80 days, on App Store, Mox Bank had more than 7,000 comments, reviews and comments, and we got 4.8 8 stars on App Store. And it's very similar on the Google Play. It's 4.5 stars or 4.4 stars. I think this is also showing us that we are doing something good for the customers. And Marcel, you know much better than me. You cannot get this kind of ratings from the customers if they don't like it.
Absolutely.
You can't. Impossible. So that's why really good signs for us.
Dennis, I know you're a very busy man, so I don't want to take too much of your time. Thank you so much for joining us today. I bet the listeners really enjoyed this conversation and really just everything that has been going on over the past 3 years, coming in with nothing and building a full-fledged bank over the course of a fairly short time in the world of banking. It's been very incredible. It's not a small fintech, but it's a full-on bank. It's not repurposing existing rails out there. It's actually building a full-on bank. So I'm really proud that we could work on this together and really of the stuff that we have been able to produce together. And I would like to congratulate you on launching this. This has been an incredible journey, and I wish you all the best over the next few years as this thing keeps growing and becoming bigger and bigger in the Hong Kong market. Maybe if you allow me one final question. This is now only available in Hong Kong, right? There's no way to get a Mox card and a Mox bank account.
For now, we are only in Hong Kong.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
Thank you very much, Marcel.
Thank you for listening. If you liked the episode, please don't hesitate to like, subscribe, review, download, or share it. My name is Marcel Klimo, and I'm from Vacuum Labs, and we'll be back soon with another episode that will give you new insights into digital banking.